Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges. It is my great pleasure to be here and present my teaching plan of the essay. Well, first of all, I would like to draw out the summary and the major theme of the essay, and then I will present my teaching plan. The essay given to me, the title of which is called Don't Fear Artificial Intelligence. And actually, this is a familiar and not so familiar field for not just me as a teacher, but for the students. But for the essay itself, I should say the structure itself is quite clear, and the major theme is also explicitly presented. So the essay is in the format of argumentation presentation and showing examples, and then how to solve the problem, and finally reaching the conclusion. For the very first paragraph, the author has mentioned the current debate between two groups of scientists. That is between those who are against the artificial intelligence and those who support the idea of developing artificial intelligence. And then he took one step to state his own opinion. That is, technology has always been a double-edged sword, since fire kept us warm but also burned down our villages. He's drawing an analogy to state his idea quite clearly in paragraph 2. And from paragraph 3 to paragraph 5, he's presenting his main ideas, he's supporting his major theme by using 3 examples, one of which is a comparison, and 2 of which are examples that is to show how the advancement of technology are making the benefit for human beings. And then, as the issue is presented here, that still nowadays a lot of people are fearful about the advancement of AR. That is why he feels the obligation to solve the problem, or at least to give some suggestions to solve the problem. That is why he has used the 3 paragraphs to present how to compose the ethical guidelines and how to face the problem reasonably and rationally. And at last, in the last paragraph, he once again echoed the major theme. That is, there is no need to be fearful about AR, and still we should be optimistic about this field of scientific research. That is roughly the ideal of the whole passage. So the whole essay could be divided into the following parts. That is, part 1 and part 2, the argumentation, showing the argumentation, and paragraph 3 to 6, showing his ideas using supporting details to illustrate his major theme. And paragraph 6 to 8, that is to how to regard it as a real problem, that to give us solutions. And finally, the echo to that of the major theme. And now I would like to present my teaching plan of the essay. First of all, my target students are mainly the non-English major sophomores, because as for this issue, I think this would be very useful for the sophomore students not to just grasp the language skill, but also to help them to improve their creative thinking. And then the major style of my teaching is a project-based one. That is to say, I'm going to use the essay just as a prelude. After analyzing some of the language points, I would like to arouse the students' creativity in, for example, writing or directing. I'm going to explain that later in details. And then the major aims of the whole teaching will include the following points. The first one is to improve their reading ability for the theme and the structure, since this is a very typical example for reading those styles of essays which show us the core idea, and then using examples to illustrate, and then how to give us solutions, and finally reaching conclusion. So that's very typical for a reading style. And then I'm going to use it mainly as a writing material, because it can also show the students how to use the logic way to write a problem-solving style essay. That will also be a very hot style of writing in not CT4 but also CT6 and the similar examinations. And finally, I'm going to try to stimulate students' creative thinking of especially solving how to solve the problem or how to present certain solutions in proper way. So here are my teaching procedure and here are my teaching plans. First of all, I'm going to use some leading information too. That is, before reading, before I teach, before I give them, present the essay to them, I'm going to help the students get more familiar with this field. Since not all students are science students, I believe there are also some art students. So I should help them to get more familiar with the topic itself by using, well, some of the paragraphs or some of the famous essays written by some scientists who show their opinion in the way that they are against the development of AR. And specifically, I'm also going to use some of the film clips as mentioned here in paragraph 2. For example, very famous one by Spielberg. The name is just Artificial Intelligence, a very touching film. I'm going to use some of the clips to show how that machine boy was invented and how finally he was destroyed by human beings, to show a kind of contrast for the students, for them to realize that it is actually an issue. Maybe it's not very familiar to us, but it's really worth considering. And then for the global rating, I'm going to help the students to do skimming and scanning right through the first 2 paragraphs, okay, to just find out the major theme, and then guide them step by step to analyze the structure of the whole essay. Well, in this part, I'm going to use very traditional way, so there's no more creative skills or techniques. But then after that, I'm going to spend more time on writing. That is the problem presenting and solving pattern of writing. So I'm going to show the students how we can present our argumentation by imitating exactly the same way as the author did, presenting the current debate and then show the idea, especially like paragraph 2. I'm going to use some of the very typical sentence patterns we can use apart from double-edged sword, because the author now is using analogy and he's using a lot of metaphors. So I'm going to try to encourage the students to grasp the meaning of those metaphors and analogy, but then I'm going to change a little bit. For example, how about the other new or some other more not fashionable but novel ways of expressing the same idea, double-edged sword. I believe there are a lot of replacement for them so that they can be better, they can learn, they can improve their writing better. And then I'm going to show them the pro and the positive and negative sides from the author. So by trying, I will ask them to guide them to figure out the keywords in the 2 parts. That is the keywords for positive and for negative opinions, so that they can learn how to construct them in logic way. And after that, after guiding them to write the essay, after give them the guidance of how to compose this style of writing, I'm going to put it in a more creative way. That is perhaps just present. For example, just now I mentioned about this field. I think they should have, maybe they could be very interested or more interested in the field after they attend my class. So perhaps I will ask them to go home and search for perhaps the full version of artificial intelligence, and then I will ask them to think about the very last part, the ending. Now, if they were the director, I want them to use their own way to redirect that film by adding up their own thinking about artificial intelligence in the film. And then perhaps I will choose some of their brilliant ideas and for the next session, and then I would encourage them to take some role play or something like that, to just act the role of the small boy, the parents, and then the other people in the film, artificial intelligence. That is to continue to redirect it. Okay, that will probably be my teaching plan for the essay. That's all.
Thank you, contestant number 1. Let's hear your questions.
Hello. I'm just interested in what kind of project would you propose for your students?
The project should be two facets. The first one is the writing. Writing should be, it may not be called a project, but when it comes to collaboration and cooperation,
But why
I think
did
it's
you
more
use
like
project-based?
because for writing, I want to divide the students into different groups. For example, they can have their own opinion. They can agree with the author, or maybe they can disagree with the author, so that they can use they can join which group they would like to, and then they can use their ideas to maybe as a kind of argument, or they can put the argument, or maybe they can continue writing by presenting how to solve the problem, or by giving more suggestions. So I call that kind of designing a project, but actually I call the directing a kind of project. I want to regard it as a project for the students to work on, to work in the groups, and then to try to carry on the topic by using their own way, by a proper designing. So that's why I use the word project, or maybe or maybe output would be a more proper word.
Well, still, I'm not quite sure about what your project is. Okay, well, can we turn to paragraph 7? Or 8, yes, sorry. The last part 1. There are only 4 lines in this paragraph, beginning with ultimately. Right. Can you read it aloud and then try to paraphrase the whole paragraph?
The whole paragraph?
Yes.
You mean paragraph 7? The 2 sentences in paragraph 7?
8.
No,
Paragraph
8, sorry.
Ultimately, the most important approach. Maybe that should be too much of a project for you. Okay, can we concentrate on our human governance and social institutions? What does that mean?
Okay, here, human governance means how people can use the technology, how people make use of the technology. And the social institutions here mainly refers to those, the organizations in small or big, which can come to work in joint effort to find out the proper solution.
Okay, thank you. That's all.